This video will present a new transportation plan to reduce greenhouse emissions and explain how big the problem is and how much time we have left to solve it. The pictures come from a scale model built to make sure the engineering would be feasible. A 90% reduction in the weight of cars would reduce emissions by about 90%. Approximately 70% of cars on the road contain one person only. 2-ton vehicles are not necessary to get us back and forth to work. Glorified go-karts would do just as well. However, the trend lately is to go to even heavier vehicles for safety reasons. The only way the public would support this plan would be to have a completely separate and safe road track for the glorified go-karts, hereafter called fun cars. This next picture shows the fun car track underneath the sidewalks in a typical neighborhood. Note in the bottom of the picture the fun car exiting the fun car track to the owner's driveway. The C-type concrete track would provide a barrier between the fun cars and traditional cars and trucks, virtually eliminating traffic deaths exclusively for the fun cars. The C-track would be open to the houses with the grass sloping down gently to the track, or gradually to the track, and open to the sunlight but protected from rain and snow. Congestion on the traditional roads would be decreased, reducing accidents for them also. In the next picture, the sidewalk in the lower right corner has been removed for a better view of the fun track. In order to create a barrier between the traditional vehicles and the fun cars, the sidewalks would have to be raised about 6 inches to stay above the storm sewer system and prevent flooding. The next picture shows an intersection with no stop signs or stoplights exclusively for the fun cars. In the bottom right of the intersection, note one red fun car turning left, one blue fun car going straight, and another one turning right up to the track going east. This option would be available only if the public approved a small increase in construction cost to reroute the utilities at the intersection and or raise the level of traditional intersections up by 2 feet. In the next picture, you can see the C-type concrete construction with the right fun car going north and the left fun car going south. The design would virtually eliminate head-on collisions. Wouldn't it be great to be able to go back and forth to work pretty much stress-free and possibly even enjoying the trip? The only downside to this plan would be the inconvenience caused by the construction. The possibility of reducing auto emissions by 90% for a third of the cars on the road would be huge. The odds of almost eliminating traffic deaths for a third of the cars on the road would be incredible. Shorter travel times by eliminating stop signs and stop lights at the intersections for the fun cars would be helpful. The much lower purchase price of fun cars, as well as the much lower maintenance cost, would significantly ease family budget problems. The big reduction in traffic congestion would help extend lives for all vehicles. The tremendous increase in the number of good-paying jobs to build the fun car tracks would be a fantastic shot in the arm for the economy. The improvements in many countries in solar, wind, and mass transit and so on are critically important to our attempts to slow down global warming. However, these methods are limited by geographic location and hours of operation. They cannot prevent global warming from going out of control by themselves. The bad news is that these efforts are overshadowed by other decisions. According to the EPA, commitments have already been made by world leaders to increase coal-fired electrical generation plants by 43%. Do you have any idea what effect that will have on our planet? These actions are much worse than kicking the can down the road. The melting glaciers and permafrost will increase greenhouse gases to a deadly level. And who's going to stop the glaciers from melting? According to the head of the UN scientific panel, global warming could spiral out of control in the next decade. Our children would become spectators to growing disasters, helpless to stop the spiraling global warming. Will your house withstand 200-mile-an-hour winds? And please tell me you live on high ground when it starts raining. By the time our politicians get serious, it may be too late. Tick tock. Now I'm going to attempt to identify the magnitude of the problem and how much time we have left. Note that the biggest contributor of greenhouse gases is electrical generation as of 2014. This number will definitely go up big time with the introduction of electric cars. As of 2014, 67% of electrical generation comes from fossil fuels. Scientists are working on hydrogen as a fuel, which converts to harmless water, and also some progress is being made to make nuclear generation safer. Although it is possible to almost eliminate emissions due to electrical generation, I'm going to make a wild guess and say that our world leaders are going to continue to kick the can down the road and build those coal-fired plants anyway. In the long run, nuclear would be much safer. Do you think the world's leaders will have the guts to commit to that? Even if they did, what countries could afford to build them? If the world leaders got together to fund nuclear generation, it would still take about a decade to build them. Pick your poison. Tick tock. Industry in general is the third largest contributor to global warming. For example, those that rely on very high temperature furnaces. Conversion from fossil fuels to hydrogen is a possible solution if it ever becomes feasible. In all likelihood, as population grows, these emissions will just go up, at least in our lifetime. Tick tock. Heating and cooling of buildings is a significant contributor of emissions. Conversion from gas and oil to electric could virtually eliminate this problem, really. What are the odds that the homeowners would spend the money to make that conversion? Thankfully, the U.S. government has been helping to make it affordable. How about the other countries? Tick tock. What about animals? They have the audacity to breathe in oxygen and exhale carbon dioxide. They contribute about 7% to the global warming. If people keep having babies at the present rate, these emissions will keep going up. And who's going to stop them? Let's admit it, we are the problem. In my opinion, reliance on politicians won't work. We must have a huge grassroots movement. Transportation is the second largest contributor to greenhouse emissions. According to Luke Nadell, Technical Director of ITDP, most of these emissions come from cars and trucks. So let's assume that about 75% of transportation emissions come from cars, and 70% of all cars contain only one person. And let's assume that 66% of these people fall in love with the safer, more economical, job-producing fun cars. 66% of 70% of 75% equals 35%. Assuming fun cars would reduce fuel consumption by 90%, they would reduce total transportation emissions by about 31%. Wow. Since transportation emissions are 26% of total emissions, 31% of 26% equals an 8% drop in global warming. When I did these calculations, I was disappointed with that number. But keep in mind, every bit of reduction of emissions is absolutely critical. And saving lives is not a bad thing anyway. And this is one of the few technologies that other countries might fall in love with and actually have the ability to implement. We're not in this alone. Regarding the net effect, I can't see these total emissions going down anytime in the next decade. Apparently, they're going to go up. Once the carbon dioxide gets into the atmosphere, it hangs in there for decades. I can't tell you how much this scares me for our children. They will be looking back when Mother Nature gets even more upset with us. Do we care about how history judges our generation? Are you really going to believe the oil, gas, and coal companies that we don't need to worry? They don't have an ulterior motive, right? They wouldn't pay a few scientists to lie, would they? And the world is still flat, right? The purpose of this video is to get the word out that there is a new way to absolutely reduce global warming. If this plan does not go viral, it will have no chance of surviving because the fossil fuel industry will hate it and fight it to the death. Since this project would pay for itself by generating savings of the initial cost of cars, maintenance, insurance, and benefits and health costs, many countries may find this plan to be the best method for them. But what are the odds that the general public will ever hear about this plan? Tick-tock. We may have no idea how furious Mother Nature can get and what she might have to do to save the planet. She's been giving us plenty of clues. The good news is that the planet can do much better without us. Who knows, maybe our children will figure out a way to grow enough food underground.